Ever get that feeling, when you meet someone new and bam, there's just something there?
Oh, absolutely. That spark.
Yeah, like some kind of instant connection.
Definitely. Powerful stuff.
It really is. And it's that whole whirlwind of love and attraction that we're going to be, well, diving into today.
We're tackling a listener's podcast idea.
Right. They want to unpack all of it. Like, what is love, really?
The age-old question.
And how's it different from just being attracted to someone?
Because there's definitely a difference, right?
Right. But how to explain that?
This podcast wants to bring in the experts. We're talking psychologists, maybe even relationship therapists, to really break it down.
Ooh, I like it. Getting all professional about matters of the heart.
Exactly. They're suggesting we get into the nitty-gritty of the psychology, the emotions behind it all.
And speaking of getting into it, they want to dig into the science of attraction, too.
Because even our brains are in on the game.
No way. Really? What do you mean?
So apparently, when we find someone attractive, our brains release this neurotransmitter, dopamine.
Dopamine, like the feel-good chemical.
The very same. It's linked to pleasure, reward, all that good stuff.
So our brains are giving us a thumbs up before we even realize we're crushing on someone.
Precisely. Our brain's saying, hey, this person, good stuff, pay attention.
Wow. So that initial attraction, those butterflies, it's like a chemical love potion our own brain is brewing.
Exactly. And this podcast idea wants to explore how knowing that, understanding that dopamine rush, can help us navigate relationships.
That makes sense because, we all know that crazy intense feeling doesn't always last forever, does it?
Exactly. It might fade a bit, but that doesn't mean the connection is doomed.
Right.
It's just transition.
Evolving.
Moving into a new phase. And that's what I find so fascinating about this podcast concept. They want to unpack how both love and attraction change over time.
Okay, yeah, because you've got that initial infatuation, the fireworks. But ideally, it becomes something deeper, right?
Exactly. It becomes a love that's less about the dopamine rush and more about, well, a deeper connection.
But more about really knowing someone, accepting their flaws and all that.
Precisely. And that's where it gets really interesting. Right?
Oh, totally. Why do some relationships make that transition to lasting love while others just kind of fizzle?
$1 million question. And this podcast wants to dig into all the factors involved. They even want to bring in personal stories to illustrate it.
Ooh, I like that. Nothing like a good story to make it relatable.
Right. Imagine hearing from couples who've been together for decades sharing their secrets.
Versus those who maybe had a whirlwind romance that, poof, disappeared just as fast.
Exactly. All those different paths love can take.
Now, speaking of different paths, they also want to explore all the different types of attraction, right?
This is where it gets really interesting. Because they're suggesting it's not just about romantic love.
Oh, interesting. So there's more to it than just wanting to date someone.
Way more.
Yeah.
Think about it. You can be incredibly attracted to someone's mind.
Oh, like you find them fascinating.
Exactly. Intellectually stimulating conversations, you're drawn to their ideas.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you're in love with them.
Exactly. Or you could have those deep emotional connections with friends.
Oh, absolutely. Those friends who just get you.
You feel totally comfortable, understood, but no romantic interest.
Right. Just a different kind of attraction.
And then, of course, there's the physical attraction, the sexual attraction.
Which can get pretty complicated, especially when it's tangled up with those other types of attraction.
100%. And you know what else this podcast wants to consider?
What's that?
The impact of culture and societal norms.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Like, what we find attractive is definitely influenced by the world around us.
Totally. Think about it. How we express attraction, what's considered romantic, it's all shaped by our culture.
It's like those romantic comedies we grew up with. Totally unrealistic expectations.
Exactly. This podcast wants to examine how those cultural factors shape not just our experiences with love and attraction, but also our expectations.
This is turning into quite the deep dive. We've got brain chemistry, relationship dynamics, cultural influences, all playing a part.
It's a lot to unravel, but I think the real heart of this podcast idea is, how do we make sense of it all?
Yeah, how do we apply all this knowledge to our own lives?
Exactly. What happens when love and attraction are both present in a relationship, but maybe one is stronger than the other?
Or maybe one fades while the other stays strong.
Precisely. Those are the questions we all grapple with.
They really are. I gotta say, this podcast idea has me looking at love and attraction in a whole new light.
Me too. It's amazing how a few simple questions can lead to such a profound exploration of the human heart.